Um, I honestly was already expecting a round of applause, but since I can't hear the applause, I'm just going to make do with the applause that I have in my head. So, good afternoon, everybody. Like she said, my name is Ayodiji Michael Ogundairo. I like to call myself a software engineer because outside of building mobile apps, sometimes I like to, choke my head in what does not concern me. Sometimes I like to be a backend developer, depending on my mood. And yeah, so I like to call myself a software engineer. I build mobile apps using Flutter. And then sometimes when the need arises, I also delve into native development. And, of recent, I decided to, just pick up the backend skill to be sure that I don't have to wait for anybody to call shots for me, right? And aside from being a software engineer, I do quite a number of things in my free time. One of them includes recording, tech content and just giving my little nuggets of knowledge, ensuring that I'm sharing, as much as I can, and then giving back to the community. And when I'm not doing that, you probably maybe see me dancing. Just don't get surprised when you see me dancing. It's something that I do to, escape all of the, you understand. So without taking so much of our time, we're going to be talking about Flutter today, right? And I'm just going to be sharing my screen for us to understand what Flutter is in itself, and then what Flutter is going to do for us, and then the whole agenda for today's meeting. So I think we're just about 9 here for now. So can I meet everybody? Just say hi. I want to be sure everybody can hear me. Okay. Okay, everybody can hear me. So in case
Hello,
there's...
Ayodiji. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Yeah. So in case there's a time during the course of the meeting that you stop hearing me, my network has just been flipping off. I've had to switch between different networks. So if there's ever a time that you don't hear me, please just drop a message in the chat box so I can improvise. Thank you. So I'm going to be sharing my screen. And I hope you can see my screen. Can everybody see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Hey,
Yes, we can.
so I'm just gonna go ahead to make this a slideshow so that it looks fine. Yeah. So today we're talking about 1 second. Okay, so today we're talking about from zero to Flutter. Of course, I mean, as it implies, right? From zero to Flutter means even if you don't have any knowledge with developing mobile apps with Flutter, this is the right place for you to be. And then we're trying to simplify mobile app development. So from zero to Flutter. So what are the things that we're going to be doing today? First of all, what is Flutter? Secondly, why are you trying to use Flutter? Number 3, setting up the Flutter environment. Then number 4, Flutter basics, the widgets, what widgets are, state and layout. What exactly is layout? I mean, picture you that you are living in an estate, right? There is a street that leads to one street. There's one corner that leads to another corner and all of that. Flutter is, something similar, right? And then after that, we're going to be building a very, very simple app. And then from there, I'll be giving us resources for further learning. So to just ensure that it does not stop here, For example, for those that will go to church, they will tell you that, church does not stop on Sunday, you start on Monday. So Flutter does not stop here. From here, I want to, hear news like, oh, somebody, just became a senior mobile engineer from here, right? So, and then I trust that we're going to be doing that. Exactly. So if you are going to be doing that, you can just drop a thumbs up and then I'll see it. So what is Flutter? Flutter is an open source UI software development kit, which is called SDK, that was created by Google for building natively compiled applications for mobile. So what does natively compiled means? It means that, we have, for example, for mobile, we have Android and then we have iOS. Each of these platforms have their own native language that you can build mobile apps with. For example, for Android, we have tool like Kotlin and Jetpack Compose. And then for iOS, we have Swift and then Swift UI or UI Kit, depending on what you are comfortable with. Now, instead of having to build a mobile app on these 2 different platforms, for example, imagine you are building a startup. It means you have to hire 2 different mobile developers. Now, imagine your company grows so big, you need like 5 mobile engineers. It means you have to hire 5 on this end and then 5 on this end. That's 10, right? Instead of, hiring 10, you can just hire 5 for Flutter and then be sending me the remaining money. Do you understand? So it's for building natively compiled applications for mobile, web, and desktop from a single code base, and it's inspired by the Dart language. What this means is that you can build for both Android, iOS, web, and then desktop, just from a single code base. If you ask me, that's a cheat. right? But you know, if I was Flutter, I probably would be working like this with maybe 2 bouncers, because how can one thing have this many powers? So, and it's powered by the Dart language. One thing we need to understand is that for every framework that you see out there, it is always powered by a language. So Flutter in itself is powered by the Dart language, right? And why are we trying to use Flutter here? First of all, if you are somebody that is coming from a native background, if you have used Java and XML, you know how hard it is. Or if you have used UI kits, you have to build and then run your program, see if it works well, and then, you know, stop, build, and all of that. But Flutter does not do that. Flutter gives you a feature that is called auto reload. As you are building, you auto reload, and in milliseconds, you are already seeing your changes. You are seeing what your app looks like. And, you know, your app is working right there in front of you. That's number one. Second, the expressive and customizable UI. You can customize Flutter, extract widgets, do almost anything that you like. You can draw with Flutter. You can do so much more with Flutter, actually. Then 3, cross-platform magic. Of course, like I mentioned, if I was Flutter, I would probably be working like this, because one framework can build on Android, iOS, desktop, and then web. That's a whole lot. And then strong community support. Of course, community is how I got to, you know about She Code Africa, right? And even She Code Africa is a community. So there's a very, very strong support, community support for Flutter, that whatever it is that you are going through, that you want to build, there's always someone out there who is willing to help. And these are the reasons why, personally, I would use Flutter, right? So now, we are going to be talking about Flutter basics, right? After this Flutter basics, trust me, we are going to be moving to building out, you know, our mobile app. You might not be able to follow along with me, because installing Flutter can be an eyesore, actually. It's a process. So I'm going to drop links on how to actually follow through this process. And the good thing is, the recording for this class will be available, so we can always pick it later and then follow through it. So we're going to be talking about, basically, I already have the links to installation for macOS and then Windows. So if you are the macOS guy, you can install with Mac. If you are the Windows guy, you can install with Windows. So now we're going to be talking about Flutter basics. 3 things here. First of all, widgets. Secondly, state management, and then layout. Now, number 1, widgets. Widgets are the building blocks of a user interface. The 2 main types of widgets in Flutter are stateless and stateful widgets. So see stateless widget as that guy that does not have states. It's just there, right? It does not change. It just dresses casually, and, you know, that kind of human being that if you put water in his mouth and then go out in the morning, by the time you are coming back in the evening, you are still meeting the water there. That is the stateless widget for you. But you see stateful widget on the other hand, that happening guy that is always here and there, you know, that sophisticated guy, that is stateful widget. So stateless widgets are static widgets that don't get mutated or don't change over time, like I explained. They are just there. Examples are the row widget, column, container. Once you create a stateless widget, it does not change its state. It's just there. Stateful widget, on the other hand, they are dynamic widgets that can change over time. They are used to manage and display dynamic data. Examples include text field, list view, and checkbox. We are going to get to these widgets as we move. Now, some things to note in state. There, you know, we spoke about widgets, which we just passed now, and then the state management. State management in Flutter refers to the way you handle and manage states or data of your application across different widgets and screens. For example, if you use an app like, you know, Twitter, which is called X now, you can see, you know, a list of posts on the screen. As you scroll, you see the person's username and all of that. You can also go to your own profile, see your username, posts that you've made, tweets that you've made, and all of that. These things are what we call state or data, because they are presented on the UI. Now, the way you manage the presentation of this is what is called state management, to ensure that, okay, users can see what they need to see per time. Imagine that you are using a fintech app, and then you get to the fintech app, your balance, which was 5 million naira before, you're now seeing 0. Me, I will fight to. So to ensure that, you know, all of these kind of scenarios don't occur, to ensure proper representation of data is why we have state management, right? Now, since Flutter is a reactive framework, the UI updates in response to changes in the app state. So some things to note: state, the data that determines how the UI look or behave at any given time. Whatever it is that you see on your user interface is what we call state, right? Secondly, widget rebuild. In Flutter, when data or state changes, the framework rebuilds the affected widgets to reflect new changes. And then also, one thing we need to notice about state management is that what also determines if your app is optimized, if it does not hang and all of that, state management is very, very, very crucial to it. And this is where widget review comes in. Now, there are two types of states. There's ephemeral state and then there's app state. Ephemeral state is short-lived state that is local to a single widget. For example, a checkbox. This is usually managed using stateful widget and set state. We are going to be using set state today for state management. And then there's app state, state that needs to be shared across multiple widgets or persist throughout the app. E.g., imagine that your username, for example, on an app like X, you can see your username on the home page, you see it on your profile, you can search for it and all of that. So the thing that ensures that this thing is persisted throughout the app is what is called app state, right? And then we're going to talk about layout. So remember that we've spoken about widgets and then managing states. Now, how do we lay out this? Tree, right, where each widget can contain other widgets, forming a hierarchy. So look at Flutter as a widget tree, right? You have the parent widget and then you have the child widget, and the hierarchy goes down and down and down and on and on like that. So widgets, of course, everything in Flutter is a widget. That's what they say, but don't believe them, please. It's a lie, right? Layout widgets determine how other widgets are arranged on the screen. Now, second, the constraints. Flutter uses a constraint-based layout system. Parents widgets pass constraints, e.g. minimum and maximum heights and width to their children, right? And then box constraints. Most widgets in Flutter are rendered as boxes. Imagine a box. Each box has constraint that defines its size. That's the height and then the width. Then we now have single and multi-child layouts. Single child layouts can contain only one child, e.g. container size box, while multi-child layout can contain multiple children, e.g. row, column, list. You imagine you are trying to build out something on a row or something on a column. That is exactly what single multi-child layout is. If you can still hear me, somebody say hi. Okay.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, great. So we can still hear me. Beautiful. So now, we're going to move on to the next slide, which is, okay, sorry. Now, this is what a visual representation of our layout is going to be like. This is the app that we're going to be building. So we're going to be building an app today that, allows you to record your voice, and then you can play your recording later. So, for example, some of us that we think that we sound like broken record, which in the real sense, we actually have very, very sweet voices, right? This app is going to allow you to record your voice, and then you can then play it later to know that, okay, I actually don't have a bad voice, right? My voice is sweet. It's just that, overthinking sometimes. So this is, for example, this is a text widget, right? That displays a text here that shows 00. And then there's something called an icon in Flutter. This is an icon, it's a microphone icon. And each of these are like a stack of containers, right? And then we have a row. You can see that these two buttons are, highlighted or outlined on this x-axis, right? Which is a row. We have one button here that says record, the other one says play. And then all of these widgets from top down are in a column widget. So all of them are outlined vertically, which is, in a column. And then these ones are outlined horizontally, which is in a row. So we're going to be looking at how to make use of all of these widgets. Basically, we're going to build this app that lets you record your voice. I hope that after this class, you people will sing and then we'll record you songs. I'll be playing this later and then to just remind me that, okay, we actually really understood this class. So now we're going to move into, yes, so for resources for further learning, I also added some YouTube channels and then websites here where you can actually really see good Flutter content that is going to, boost your skills. So with these few points of mine, I hope I've been able to convince you and not confuse you that Flutter is not hard. Now let's get to work. So before we get to work, I'm going to be opening my Visual Studio Code. So yeah, I'm going to be opening my Visual Studio Code, and let me just open a new window. Now we're going to create a new Flutter project. I'm just going to hit Command Shift and P if you use Flutter. This is Visual Studio Code is an IDE, an integrated development environment. That is where you are able to build apps. Okay, I think somebody dropped a message. Okay, great. So this is where you are able to, build mobile apps. For example, we have different IDEs for building mobile apps. There's Android Studio, there's VS Code. But these are the two, major popular ones, and they actually really make work and life easier for you. So today we're going to be using VS Code. And the reason why I like VS Code is, first of all, I like the UI. I like dark UIs. I don't like too much brightness. Secondly, it is lightweight, right? If you are somebody that, uses Windows and your Windows does not have so much capacity in terms of the RAM size, you can still make use of VS Code, unlike Android Studio. Android Studio is going to drag your PC by the neck. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to come to new project. Because I have installed Flutter, right, I can create a new Flutter project. But don't worry, the link that I've dropped on the presentation would help you see the step-by-step guide to installing Flutter, right? If we decide to install Flutter on this call, we probably will stay here till, God knows when. So, but we won't be doing that ourselves. So I'm going to click on new projects, right? And then I'm going to click on application. We are trying to build a Flutter application, right? And then I'm going to create, just pick a repository where this will be saved. And then I will name this Shecode Africa, Africa. Then we're going to name this recorder, right? And then we're going to hit enter. And Flutter just creates the template app for us. Now, that's step number one. Secondly, also, when you install Flutter, aside from installing the Flutter SDK, you're also going to be installing Xcode if you use a MacBook, right? If you don't use a MacBook on Windows, you would install Android Studio. Android Studio comes with Android emulators, but for this one, we're going to be using iOS simulator. So this is just to simulate a real mobile device. So I'm going to be bringing up my iPhone 15 Pro Max. So you people will know that I'm big. I'm coming. So let me just bring up my iPhone 15 Pro Max. Oh, okay, great. We have it here. So this is what my iPhone 15 Pro Max looks like. And I'm just going to bring it here side by side. Oh, okay, let's do this. I'm just going to drag this here. And yeah, open this up. So I'm just going to run this our app by pressing, first of all, I will select, let me just bring this up here. I will select my device, which is my iPhone 15 Pro Max, right? And then I'm going to hit F5 to run my Flutter project. So now our Flutter project is running, and then we'll see what the template Flutter app looks like. Okay. So just give it like a minute or two for us to run our app. And let us see. Okay, yes, of course. Is this good? I want to believe this.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Okay, great. So now, you see this thing, right? This thing that you see on this right-hand side, it is called the widget inspector. So for example, on this UI, remember that I made mention of some widgets. We have our text widget, and then we have something in a column here, and then a button and all of that. All of these things are outlined in a widget tree. So for example, we have my app. Inside my app, we have a material app. Inside the material app, we have my home page, which is this home page, right? And then inside this my home page, we have a scaffold, and then a center, and then a column, app bar, blah, 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 and all of those. So for example, if you take a look at this column, you will see the text. You have pushed this button many times. It's the same thing that we can see here. So the widget tree is really useful for you to see the number of widgets that you have in your tree. If there is, any error with any of them, for example, you can have an overflow error. So that is just it about the widget tree. So now this is our template app, right? If you click on this button, oh yes, I'm using a MacBook. Yes, I'm using a MacBook. So I explained, if you use a MacBook, you would be able to see an iOS simulator in Xcode. But if you use Windows, you would see Android emulators through Android Studio. So the video would definitely take you through the step-by-step guide on how to install it. And if after the workshop you have any questions, you can always reach out to me, and then I'll just be able to direct you on what to do. So now, if you see, when we click on this button, right, you see that the number on the screen increases. Remember that what we spoke about states the other time, that, okay, as something changes on your UI, you need to redraw your UI, you need to rebuild it such that your user sees, for example, your user sees the updated data. So the more I click on this, the more the number increases, right? Now, before we go ahead to what we want to build, right, we're going to clear off this data that we have here. 1 second. I'm going to remove all of these comments, right? And then we're going to talk briefly about that, which is the programming language in itself, right? Let me just remove all of this. And yeah, let me remove all of this. Okay. And yes, we are here. So we're going to talk about that, the programming language in itself, right? And then we're going to be seeing a few things to note about that. So first of all, let me remove all of this. So we're going to just see a white background, right? Now, in that, right, in programming languages generally, they are what we call, variables, right? For example, if you want to represent 0, for example, there's something we call an integer, right, which is int. There is double, right, which is floating point numbers, right? There is Boolean, which is true or false. There's string, and then, lists, blah, 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 and all of those things. So what is int? For example, I want to represent 0. The 0 that was represented on the UI the other time. I can say int my number, right, equal to 0. And then I will end it with a semicolon, right? Let me remove this. You can see there's no compilation error, right? Now, double means floating point number. So floating point number is something that has dot at the back. So 0 point something, 1 point something, 2 point something, that's float double. So I'm going to say double, my double, right, equal to 0.2. And then if I want to declare a string, so let's say I want to write she code Africa, right? I can say string she code Africa, right, equal to she code Africa. So now in that, you can either represent strings with single or double quotes, right? So I'm going to say either single or double quotes, right? So she code Africa, this still works, right? And then I can say bool is Flutter workshop, right? It's Flutter workshop equals to true, because yes, we are doing a Flutter workshop, so this is true. Now, these are some of the things that we need to take note of, which we are going to be making use of here, right? Now, let's now go to the first thing. So this is our UI. This is what we want to build, right? First of all, we can see, so we're going to ignore this home, or let's just make use of it, right? We're going to build this. So in Flutter, there's something called an app bar. Before we go to an app bar, what is a scaffold? Look at this. Now, you can see that there's a white screen here. For example, let me just remove this scaffold, and then let me just put a container. You see that what we're going to have is just a black screen. Now, we cannot represent anything on the UI with this. So we're going to be making use of a scaffold, right? A scaffold widget. What is a scaffold widget? If you hover over this, one good thing about Flutter is that in the documentation, there's descriptions. Now, you see that it says it creates a visual scaffold for material design widgets. So scaffold is basically for material design. Material design is for Android, right? Material design is for Android, while Cupertino is for iOS. But good thing about Flutter is that you can always make use of material widgets also for iOS, and then it works pretty fine. It gives you the same iOS feel. Now, I'm going to be making use of scaffold, and then we'll press Ctrl S or Command S. You'll see that it brings up a white screen. If we want to change the color of this scaffold, now I can say background color now will be equal to colors dot, let me see, red, right? And then let's change this to red. But because the color that we have here, right, is black, we're going to say colors dot black, right? Black. This is the first step. Now, we'll see that this text, they are at the top. So there's a widget in Flutter called app bar, right? And it's inside the scaffold. It's the property of the scaffold. So widgets have properties. For example, a scaffold has an app bar, it has background color. To just properties are what you use to modify all of these things, right? So we're going to say app bar is going to be an app bar widget, right? App bar widget. And then the app bar widget also has properties that makes you able to customize it. So we're going to see the title. What's the title of our app bar widget here? We have call recorder, but instead we are going to make it voice recorder. So we're going to say the title is a text, right? And then we're going to say the text is voice recorder. Remember that we spoke about strings the other time. This is a string, right? So we can also extract this string and say, okay, I want to say string my title equal to voice recorder with semicolon, and then we're going to paste my title here, and then it works just fine, right? Now we want to change the color of this app bar from this white kind of to black. So we're also going to come inside the app and then look for any colors property. we can see shadow color, background color, foreground, surface tint. What we're going to use is the background color. So we're just going to say, okay, this background color is also colors.black, right? And then we're going to press Command S, and then you can see that it becomes black too, that we can't even see we almost cannot see the text. So the color of the text is red here, right? So we're just going to change the color of the text also. So now there's something in the text widget called style. It's also to, give a style. When they say, this guy gets style, this girl, she gets style. So now this text actually has style. So we're going to say style and then say text style. Is a text style widget. And also to ensure that you are not, confused with any widget in Flutter. If you hover over any widgets, it tells you what kind of widget it expects. For example, the property of this text style, which is a style, you see that it expects a text style widget. So we're using a text style widget. Now, inside the text style, we're going to say the color of our text will be colors.red, right? And then you can see that it has changed to red, which is the first step. Now, also here, now we're going to move into this part. Now, the next thing we want to do is build this text, right? So we're going to take another text widget. Now, in this scaffold, there's another property called body. Remember that this one, bar is at the top. Now, there's a body in a scaffold, which determines what will be laid out, here. So we're now going to say, okay, the body of our scaffold is also a widget, right? It is a widget. Now, remember that I said that we have a widget called column that can help us outline things, on the vertical axis. So we're now going to say, okay, the body of my scaffold is going to be a column, right? Then column, because it takes in many children, there's a particular property called children, which are going to make use of. Now, if I press Ctrl S, nothing shows up because, fine, this column needs children, but we've not given it any child yet. So the first child we are going to give this column is the text widget, right? Which is going to show the duration of our voice recording. So I'm just going to say, okay, the first child of my column is going to be a text widget. And then I'm just going to say, okay, I want to show duration of my voice recording, right? So I'm going to say string voice recording duration equal to this, right? Which is 0, 0. This is hours, this is minute, and then this is second. So I'm just going to copy this and then paste it here. And then voila, we already have our first text. So also remember that for it to be able to show up, we need to make use of this style. So we're just going to copy this style here and then paste it here. And we can see that it's showing up somewhere here, right? So we need to be able to align this thing to the center. Remember that this thing is aligned to the center here, right? So two things that we can do. We can either wrap these text widgets inside the center widgets. So a center widget helps us center a widget to the middle, to the center of its parent. So I can say, okay, I want to center this, right? And then after pressing Ctrl S, that is where auth reload comes in. You see that the moment I press Ctrl S or Command S, it automatically says and then updates my UI. You can see that it moves to the center. Or I can say that, okay, there's a property in this column called cross-axis, right? Cross-axis in a column is the x-axis this way, right? I can say cross-axis alignment, then it takes in, you see that it takes in a cross-axis alignment, and then I'm just going to say cross-axis alignment dot center, right? And then there's also main axis alignment too. And then I can say main axis alignment dot center, right? It brings it here, but because it's in a column, right? I will need to wrap, the whole of the column in the center. So we're not going to be making use of that. I'm just going to wrap this one in the center widget, and then it just brings it, it just brings it there straight up for us. So now, the next thing we want to do is you will see that the size of this text is bigger than this other one, right? The size of this one is bigger than the other one. We're going to then increase the size of this text, and then we're going to say, also, we're going to be making use of this style. So there's something called font size, right? We're going to increase this one to, let's say, 25. And then you can see that, okay, it increased a little bit, but it didn't increase up to the extent that I wanted to increase. So we're just going to still increase the size, and then we're just going to increase the font size to 50, right? 50. And then we can see that it's pretty big. Now, if you also look at it, you see that it is thicker than the one at the top. So there's something called font weight, which determines the weight that you give to your text. So I'm just going to say weight, right? And then I'm going to say font weight dot bold. Somebody say I am bold. Yeah. And then you can see that it becomes bolder. So now, if you take a look at this, there's space between here and this one. So we want to put in space. We're now going to come over here at the top before the text widget. We're going to then use a sized box widget, right? And then we're going to give it a height of, let's say, 100 to just bring space between this voice recorder text and then this text. and then we're just going to save, and then it pushes it down. So that's the first step. The next thing we want to do now is to create our containers. Now, if you take a look at this, right, you see that we have 3 containers here. There's one very big one here, a tiny one here, and then another tiny one here. So that's 3 containers, right? Now, in the Dart language, there's something called a for loop, right? A for loop is something that you can use to repeat something. So for example, now imagine I want to say, I want to print something in my console, right? Let's say that, okay, I want to, let me say, print, okay, so let's just come here. Let's create, there's something called a function, right? A function is something that you can use to execute a block of code, right? So now let's assume that I create a function. Let me say function print my name, right? And then I'm going to say, okay, print my name is Shecode Africa, right? Or let me say this is Shecode Africa, right? And then semicolon. Now, if I copy this print my name and then paste it here in the build method, right? And then I press Ctrl S, you see that this thing is printing Shecode Africa here on the console, right? So now how can I make use of this thing to also do some other things? So there's something called for loop in that, right? For loop means that I can iterate over something multiple times as opposed to doing it once. For example, now imagine I want to print 1 to 3, right? I will now say print 1, right? Print 2, and then print 3, right? Of course, it prints 1 to 3, but imagine you want to print 1 to 1,000. Are you going to then duplicate this one from 1 to 1,000? That would be too stressful. So now we can make use of a for loop and then say there's a for loop, right? And then say for variable I equal to 0, which is the starting point, right? In programming languages, right, it always starts from 0, not from 1. So if you want to count, let's say you want to count to 100, you start from 0, 1, 2, 3, and then on and on like that. So we'll say that, okay, for I equal to 0, I is less than, let's say that we want to print 100, for example, right? We can say I is less than 101, I plus plus. Now we're going to say print I. So I now is holding the value of our is holding the value that we want to print out. So instead of saying print 1, print 2, print 3, print 4, print 5, 200 like that, we're just going to do print I and then we're going to save. Now we can see that it prints from, when I scroll up, look at the console here. You see that it prints from 0 straight down to 100, right? So now we're going to make use of this same thing to create our container. So now in Flutter, there's something called lists. In that, sorry, there's something called list. List is something that can take a collection of items. So for example, if I say list my numbers, right, equal to a list, I can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And then if I print my numbers, you see that it will print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the console. So since this thing can take in a list of numbers, how about we create something that can take in a list of widgets that will now represent those widgets on the UI for us? So we're now going to say, okay, we want to create containers, right? We're now going to say, we're going to come down here. After this text, we're now going to say list.generate, right? Now, what's the length of our containers? If we count it, this is 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to say, okay, you generate 3 containers for us. And then there's something called the generator, right? Which takes in the index. Index is starting from 0. Remember that I said that it starts from 0 in programming languages, right? So 3 means that index will be 0, 1, and 2, instead of counting from 1, 2, and 3. Do you understand? So now, in each of these now, we're now going to say that, okay, we want to return a container here, right? And then we're going to give you the decoration property, which is a box decoration, right? And then the color of the container will now be colors.red, right? We also want to give this thing a shape. Remember, if you see it, you see that it's circle, right? So we're going to say that, okay, the shape that I want to give this thing is box shape.circle, right? Now you can see that there's an error. An error is showing up here. Reason is because we are trying to put in a list of widgets here, right? But this thing only it only expects one widget at a particular index at the time. For example, you see that it says the elements type list of container can be assigned to the list type widget. Now, in that, there's something called spread operator. Spread operator means that, okay, I have a list of things, right? I want you to be able to help me spread them out one after the other so that I don't have to stress myself extracting them one by one. So to use spread operator, we're now going to come behind this list and then do ... and then you see that the error is gone. Now, if you press save, right, nothing shows up still. First of all, let us give our container a height. Let's say height of 200, and then a width of 200 also. And then, can you see that we have 3 containers here? Soft, no stress. Now, it's not looking like what we want here because, I mean, this is totally different. So, first thing we are going to do is that, okay, let us remove the filling, right? And then just put it around the border. So what we're going to do is that there's a property here called border. We're now going to say this is going to be border.all, right? It means I want you to give all of the angles border. And then we're going to say the color is going to be colors.red. And then we're going to say the width is going to be 2, for example. Now, when we save this, nothing happens. But if you go ahead to remove the color in the container itself, now can we see that it's looking like what we want to do? Bit by bit, it's looking like it, right? Now, the next thing we're going to do is, now is that, okay, after we have done this, we need to be able to put each of these containers on top of each other. Remember that these things are on top, not vertically aligned. So now there's a widget in Flutter called stack. Of course, like the name implies, stack, it helps you stack, things on top of each other. So we're going to come here and say that, okay, we need a stack widget, right? And then the stack widget takes in also children. Now, if you take a look at these children, right, you see that it says it's a list. It says it's a list of children, right? And then since what we put down here is a list, why don't we just Kokuma cut our list like this? Let's just take the list, right? Remove this ... and then just come and put it here because it requires a list of children. So if you take a look at this now, you see that there's no error being thrown, nothing, right? And then when we press save, you can see that we have just one container. How? It's 3 containers that we have now. The reason is because all of these containers are of the same height and width, and then they are stacked on top of each other. So we're not going to say that, okay, how can we reduce them such that the first one has a smaller size, then the second one has a bigger size, and then the third one a much more bigger size. So what we're going to say now is that we're going to say double size, right? Or let me say double height equal to 200, right? And then we're going to just remove this 200 here and then paste the height instead. And then we're going to say double width. Width is also equal to 200, right? Of course, nothing happens. But how can we make this thing have different heights? So now, remember that I said index starts from 0 to the end. Now, we have 3 items here. So it means the index will start from 0, 1, and 2. So what about if we multiply the height by that index? Is it going to do anything? So let's say that, okay, 200 multiplied by index, right? Right. And then we're going to say that, let's just put .0 here to remove the error because it's a double and then we're passing an integer here. So we're going to also say 200.0 multiplied by index. Now, if you press save, you can see that something is not right. It looks like we have just 2 containers, but there's a property in stack called align. So I want to align this thing. How do I align it? So I'm going to align it to the center. We're now going to say alignment.center, right? And then we'll press Ctrl S. Now we have just 2. We have just 2 widgets. Why? How? How is it just 2 widgets? I mean, what we did here is 3 now. Reason is because remember that the first index is 0, right? It means that if we multiply 200 by 0, it's going to give us 0, right? So now what we're now going to say is that, okay, instead of doing it, multiplying it by the index alone, let's add 50 to the index so that the first one will be 200 plus 50, right? Remember that the first index is 0, and then the second one will now be 200 plus 52, right? And then the third one will be 200 plus 50, 53. So if you have questions, please, as we're going, please just drop them so that we'll pick up with it. So, for example, the height, now the first index is 0, so that would be 200 times 0 plus 50, right? The second one will be, 200, this is supposed to be 200 plus, 200 plus index, then times 50. So, for example, let's say that our index now is 0 here. So it means 0 times 50 will give us 0, obviously. So 200 plus 0 will still give us 200. Same thing here. Now, when the index becomes 1, index times 50, that is 1 times 50 will give us 50. 200 plus 50 will give us 250. So it means the second container will be 250, right? And then the third container will be 2 times 50. That should give us about 250, right? And then 2 times 50 should give us 100, sorry. And then we are going to get plus 200 is then going to give us 300. So now let's just do plus. And then we can see that when we then press Ctrl S, it then gives us the 3 containers that we want. So it's beginning to look more like it's now. Now we're going to come back to the different sizes. Now, we need to put in this microphone icon here, right? We're now going to come here and say that, remember that the thing starts from 0 to 1. So there's 3 different children. Please give me a second. 1 second.
Hey everyone, I hope we are enjoying this webinar. If at all at any point you have questions, please do well to drop them on the chat. And don't forget to fill the feedback form. I just dropped the link on the chat as well. Please feel free to drop your questions. I mean, I'm soaking as much as you need to soak in for this webinar. All right.
Yes, I'm back. Sorry for the transmission. I had to do something. So now, do we have any questions so far? Is there anything that is not clear so far that we need to quickly throw light on so that we'll move as fast as we can? Okay, what extension suggestion? Okay, gives me suggestion. Oh, yeah, it's GitHub Copilot, actually. We're also going to talk about using AI because you see, we're at the point where, like they would say, AI will not take your job, but somebody who uses AI will take your job. So you need to really learn how to make use of AI, right? It makes your work faster, very, very faster. Oh, sorry, 1 second.
Okay, speaking of AI, before I think our speaker is having some technical challenge. So speaking of AI, all right, he's back.
Yes, I'm back. Sorry. I have to
Okay.
my networks. I've been having network issues. So now talking about AI, right? It helps you work faster, right? There are quite a number of things. Of course, yes. Me, for example, I like to want to do the rock work. I like to just put some really heavy work on my brain. But sometimes you need to let your brain rest and think about vacation. Think about going to Maldives. Let AI just run that mathematical computation for you. So it makes your work really, really fast. So yes, I'm making use of GitHub Copilot. And yeah, okay. I used the spread operator before, but when wrapped in a list with a stack widget, it's no longer there. Okay, yes. So now, the reason is because if you take a look at the children of a stack widget, right, you see that it says it's a list of widgets. And remember that this thing right here, this is a list of widgets too, right? The reason we are using spread operator is because, of course, the child of a column and the children of a column also takes in a list, but we've already started putting each item in here. So how are we then going to put a list inside a list? Basically, we have 2 lists now, right? Which is the children of the column and then the list of our widgets. Let me paste it here, right? How can we put this list inside another list? That is what a spread operator does for you. It helps you put a list inside the list. So let's say you have 10 lists and you want to now merge everything all together into one list, right? We will then use spread operator. So for example, now imagine that I wasn't putting just this list of children inside my stack. Let's say that okay, I put a list here. This is a list literal. I want to now put a list of that our children here, and then another list again. Let's say another list that generate, right? Let's say 3, and then I want to say text. And then I want to say this is $index, right? Let me see 1 second. Right? And then I will return this is $index. Now you see that it's throwing an error for us because this thing expects children inside it expects like single children at every point, at every position inside the list, but we're putting 2 lists. So how can we put these 2 lists inside a single list? That's where we then make use of spread operator, right? And then we're just going to come here, and you see that the error is gone. And if I press save, you see that this index is showing up here at the middle. Let me just change the color so that you see style. Then let me say text style, and then colors.red. Let me just say colors.red. And then you see that this is, can you see the text here? So that is why we removed it, because we are just putting in a list, just a single list of children, not multiple lists. So we can then remove this back and revert back to what we had. So yeah, that's pretty much it about AI. It just makes your work really, really fast, right? And then it makes your learning faster. So I've learned quite a number of things from AI, even things that I did not know. So now let's get back to it. So now I want to put in this microphone icon. Remember that this particular container here is also bigger than the other ones. So we're going to get there, right? Now I want to put this microphone. So we're going to say that, okay, there's two types of icons in Flutter. There's the normal material icons, and then there's Cupertino icons. Cupertino icons is for iOS. Material icons is for Android, right? You know, iOS, their own things is always different. So we're now going to come here and say the child of this container now is going to be an icon, right? And then we're going to say Cupertino icons dot mic, right? Then we can use mic field. If, for example, if you take a look at different type of icons, you see, so we can use mic field because we want the middle to be filled. Now, nothing shows up. Let's just change the color to colors.red as well. And then let's say the size is, let's say 50. And then we can see that the mic shows up there. Now, let's say we'll make it 100. Now, when we take a look at this, right, we would have 3 mics showing up here. Why are we going to have 3 mics? Because we have 3 containers here. Remember that we use list.generate to generate it. So now we need to be sure that, okay, we want to just put a single icon there so that we don't waste widgets. So we're just going to now say that, okay, if our index is 0, remember that 0 is the first index. So we are going to say 0 index equal to 0 question mark. If it's equal to 0, just help us to put this icon there. Else, don't put anything, just put none. And then we'll see that nothing changes because now it has removed 2 redundant widgets for us and then just put 1 there. Now, this is the first step. How do we then increase the size of this one? Just this one. Remember that we made use of index now. So this is the first one in the list. This is the second one, this is the third one. So we want to increase the size of the first one. So we're going to say that, okay, the border of our container, right? If index equal to 0 again, right? Make the width 8, else make it 1. And now it looks like it. We have increased the size of the one at the first index, and then, you know, we just left the others to be just 1. So we're gradually getting there. We're almost there. Now, this is the major thing. Now we now need to move on to just building this. These are our buttons that is going to help us record and then help us play. So the first thing we're going to do is that after our stack widget, which is these our 3 containers, right? We now need to come down and then now say, okay, the first thing we need to do is create a container, right? Which is, remember that container is what we've been using since. It helps us, you know, just style and then give it different colors. Now, when we take a look at this, you see that the red here is lighter, right? The one here is very, very deep. How do we reduce the color? We can say, okay, colors.red, there's something called width values, right? It helps you reduce the opacity of, so we're going to see let's now move on to this, our 2 buttons. This is where we're moving on to next, right? The first one is the record button. Remember that these things were outlined in a column, right? So these 2 buttons now, inside which widget are we going to put them? I want to see if somebody is paying attention. We are putting them inside which widget? Suggestions, please. Row, okay, beautiful. Any other suggestions? Any other suggestions? Are we listening? So there's only one person that has been listening since. Hey. Okay. Okay, we have 2. Okay. From the amount of 2 or 3, shall we confirm the truth? That's nice. So we have 3. Good. So now we're going to make use of the row widgets right now. The first thing we're going to then come to do here is put in a row And then remember that this one also takes in children. So children, the first child of this row is going to be this. So remember that these two things too, they are also in a column because there's the container at the top with the mic, and then there's the text at the bottom. So we're not going to say that, okay, we are going to have a column inside this row. Then the children of the column, the first one will be the container, right? And then the second one will now be the text. So what is the text? The text says record. So we're just going to say record, right? And then we're going to use the same text style that we've been using initially. We're just going to copy this and then come here and then paste it here inside the text. So it changes the color to colors already, but of course you can see now 50 is too big. So we're just going to reduce this to, let's say 15, or let me say 20. And then we're going to remove this font weight, right? Which is, we're almost there now, we're almost there. So now, the next thing we want to do now is to style this container. So we are going to go to the decoration property and then say box decoration. The color is going to be colors.red, and then we're going to give the height of the container, let's say 70, right? And then we're also going to give the width, let's say another 70. Okay, it's beginning to look like it's small now, right? Now we're going to also change the shape. Remember that I said that we can change the shape here to box shape.circle, right? Aha, it's beginning to look like it. Now we need to give the child also an icon. So I'm going to say icons dot, okay, let's use the same Cupertino icons. Yes. Oh, yeah. So the thing is that how Flutter works is that you can use both Cupertino widgets, material widget for Android and iOS interchangeably like that. It does not affect performance. So the reason why is because Cupertino icon is, if you build natively, for example, the way your Android UI looks is not the same way your iPhone UI looks. So if you want your app to look like, an iPhone app actually, you can make use of the Cupertino icon, Cupertino widget, right? But it does not affect performance, it does not affect anything. If you use Cupertino, it works for both Android and iOS. If you use Material, it works for both Android and iOS. That's why I said that if I'm Flutter, I'll be working like this because there's too much power, right? Way too much power. So it works for both of them. So I can decide that, okay, here, I don't want to use Cupertino icons. I want to use normal icons.mic, right? I can use normal icons.mic and it is still going to work. But you can see that the shape is different. If you take a look at this one, and then this one, you can see the shape is different. So the shape, the look, how it looks like is the difference between these widgets. So to just stay consistent, we are going to use the same Cupertino icons.mic_fill, right? Mic_fill, right? And then we're here. So now we want to create the second, what's it called? The second one, which says play. Now let's just create that. Let's just copy this, right? And then paste it here after this one. Now we have two buttons that says record. So we're going to change this one to play. And then we're going to change this one to Cupertino icons.play, right? Or let me just change this one to, let's use icons here instead of Cupertino icons. Let me just say play, yeah. And then we're going to change this one to. Okay, yeah, so we have this. Now, these two things are beside each other. How do we space them? We are going to now come to this. Remember that we used a row. You guys suggested row, right? There's a property in row called main axis alignment, right? We're now going to say this is going to be main axis alignment dot space evenly. We want it to give it even space. So the space between this side of the screen to this side, and then here to here and here to here will be the same. That is what space evenly does, right? So we want to also give some space between this our stacked container and then this thing. So we're just going to come here and then put in a size box and then say the height is going to be 50, right? So that will give us space, right? And then we're also going to do the same thing here at the top here. So from this our text and then these are our containers, we want to put small space. So we're just going to put space of size, let's say 20. And then you can see. So our app is almost done. If you see the color here, this red is also light, right? So we're also just going to come down to these containers, right? The first one, we're going to say with values, right? And then we're going to say alpha is going to be 0.5. You can see this one changes. And then we're also going to change the color of our mic. to white. So we're going to say colors.white, right? Or what color should we change it to? Let's change it to colors of red. I think that's the color that we have here. Yeah, colors of red. So now it's looking like it. We're also going to do the same thing for here, right? Where's our icon? We're going to say the colors.red, and then we're going to also change this one to dot with values, and then say 0.5. Alpha, then 0.5. Now, our app is done. Our app is almost done. So how do we start recording? Now, before we get into working with third-party packages, do we have any questions? If you have any questions, please feel free to unmute and I'll be glad to take your questions. Do you have anything that is confusing that we need to visit or revisit? And then we'll take it. Please feel free to unmute your mic and talk. Please. Okay, so I want to assume that we don't have any questions, so we're just going to proceed, right? Okay, great. So, how to start?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? There's a question in the chat.
Chat, okay.
You said Cupertino is for iOS and Material icon is for Android, but only Cupertino icon was used for the microphone icon without writing a case for Android.
Can anybody hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
I can hear
Great.
you.
Okay, so do you mean the questions with Cupertino for iOS? Is that the question?
Yes.
Oh, yes, I
Chat,
already
yes.
answered
So I'm
that.
reading
So,
it out.
You already answered. You
The
already
person
answered.
does not want to unmute.
okay, great. So now, there are times that we want to do some things, but we maybe don't have the capacity to do it yet, or we've not learned that thing. Now, there's something called third-party packages in Flutter, right? These are things that other people have built because of their own knowledge, and then they feel, okay, instead of holding this knowledge, let me just build this thing as something that can be reusable for others. So, for example, imagine that I want to build something that allows me to record my voice now. If I'm going to do that, I probably have to build it natively and then integrate with Flutter. It can be a whole lot of headache. So one person decided to, just sacrifice their time and then their knowledge and then build this thing as a package so that others can make use of it. So today we're going to be making use of two packages, one that's going to help us record voice and the other that is going to help us play. So how do we see third-party packages? There's a website called pub.dev. That is where you're going to see anything packages for Flutter. So we're just going to head to our browser and say pub.dev, and then here you can search any package. So for example, imagine that you want to search a package that helps you use emojis. You can just say emoji, right? And then you see different emoji packages. For example, if you click on the first one, you see emoji picker, and then it tells you how to use it, what it's going to look like, and all of those things. So, but today we want to record voice, right? So we're going to be making use of two packages. One is called recorder, and then the other is called audio players. And one is called record, and then the other audio player. So let me just search for record, right? And then if you click on the record package, it says audio recorder from microphone to a given file path or stream. Remember that when we record this audio, we have to save it somewhere so that we can see it later, right? Now it says no external dependencies. It works on Android, iOS, Windows, and then web, right? So now we'll skip all of this. It tells you, the features and then the type of files. Now we're going to go to how to use it. Now this is the usage. It says final record equal to audio recorder. If audio recorder has permissions and all of those things, we're going to make use of it. So how do we set it up first of all? Remember that we're dealing with two mobile platforms here now, Android and iOS. So let's set up for Android first. Now we're going to copy this thing that is here, right? It says that if you follow Gradle's setup if you need it. Good thing is that Gradle is already set up for you, so you don't have to worry about it. Now you will now head into a file called Android manifest, which is like a configuration for Android apps, right, in Flutter. So we're going to just come here and press Command P and search for Android manifest.xml. Now you're going to make use of the one inside the main folder, not the bug or profile, because if you'll be pushing your app live to users, it is the main that you make use of. So we're going to click on this one. And then that thing that we just copied now, we're going to come here and then press enter and then just paste it here. So if you take a look at it, it says the first one, the second one, it says is optional. The third one, it says is also optional. I said add this permission if you want to use Bluetooth telephoning device like headset or earbuds. We are not using that, right? So we're going to remove the second one. And then the third one too also says, add this permission if you want to save your recordings in public folders. We're not saving in public folders, so we're going to remove it. Now, the only one we're going to make use of now is record audio, which is the permission that gives us access to recording audios on Android device. Now, that is for Android. Now, it says minimum SDK is 23, right? If you want to change your minimum SDK, you can just come here and then search for min SDK, right? You see it here, but the one that we have here should suffice, so we won't be changing anything. But if you want to change your minimum SDK version, you just come here, remove this thing, and then just paste whatever SDK version you want to use. Now, that is good. Now, the next thing we are going to do is for iOS. Now, for iOS, this will work, but you need to put permission too, right? So it says NS microphone uses description. So this is going to tell your users why you need access to their microphone. Why do you want to use my mic? Why do you want to listen to my voice? Why? So we're now going to copy this and then add into a file called info.plist for iOS. So there's Android manifest.xml for Android. Then there's info.plist for iOS. So we're just going to press Command P and search for info.plist for iOS. Now we're going to come here and then just paste it somewhere after the dict and then just format this properly. So why do we need access to the microphone? So we can just say, please give access to your microphone so you can record voice notes, right? Now, the last thing we're now going to do is that, okay, now we're good here. We're now going to throw back up and then come to this installing part, right? Now, it says, first of all, depend on it. There are two ways that you can do it. Either we run Flutter pub add record, or we just copy this and go and paste it in our dependency. So we're just going to copy this and then add to our configuration file. Our configuration file is called popspec.yaml file. That's where anything, if you want to use any third-party package, that is where you're going to put it. Now I'm going to scroll and then go under the dependency section, right? And then let's just remove this comment. Now you can see it depends on Flutter and then Cupertino icons. Remember the Cupertino icons we were using the other time for iOS. This is what gives us access to it. So it depends on Flutter. So now we're going to now depend on that record package, right? We're going to depend on it. And then we're going to press Command S to just save it and then run pubget for us. So pubget helps us download this dependency into our own code base, right? Now that's number one. Secondly, I said we're going to make use of audio players too. So we're just going to go back and then search for audio players. Let me just search for audio players on pub.dev. And then we can see this is the audio players, the one that I want to use. We're just going to click on it and also follow through the installation guide, right? So what's the installing guide here? Let's see, installing. Okay, this one, so we're just going to add this. So we're just going to copy this, right? And then come back here and then also paste audio players here. Then we'll press Command S to help us download the packages. Once it's done, you see that this thing lives there. So that is done now. Now, the next thing we now want to do is that, first of all, remember that we want to record, right? It will be counting the seconds and minutes here. And then when it's done, when we are done, we can play it here. So we're now going to come back to our code base here. First thing we're going to do now is that, remember that in the record package, let me go back to that record package. They give us steps on how to make use of it. Sorry, record. They gave us steps on how to make use of it. So we're just going to come back here. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to import the record package. We're going to go back to our code base, then copy that, and then import it here, first of all. The second thing is that we're now going to create a function. We're going to create a function, right, called record audio. So we're going to say, we're going to come here. Let's just remove all of these things that we had here initially. Let's remove all these ones. We don't need them anymore. We're now going to say, okay, record, audio, which is going to be a function, right? Now we're going to say that, okay, final record equals to audio recorder, which is the audio recorder widget from that package that we just installed now, right? We're now going to go back here and then say that, okay, if record.has permissions, that means if our audio recorder has permission to record audio, right? Now, to make use of await, there's something called async and await in Flutter, right? But I'm now going to put the async keyword here so that we're able to use await and then the error goes up. What this does is that it's telling us that, okay, wait for this thing to finish before you do any other thing. So anything I will put inside this if block now, right? Until this as permission is done, fetching if it has permission or not, our app will not do anything, right? So we're waiting for it now. We're not going to say that, okay, I wait to record the start, right? I wait to record the start, right? Now, before we start recording, we need to put this thing in a path, right? That means the path where the audio record will be saved on our phone. We need to put it somewhere, right? So let's just hold on. How do we do that? We're going to get there. Now, we want the record to start. Now, after you start, we're now going to create a variable called is recording. So we're going to say bool is recording equals to false, right? Because when you first of all open the app, we are not recording now, so it has to be false. Now, the moment we start recording, we want to set the value to be true. So we are now going to use set state. Now, this is state management. We're now going to say is recording will be equal to true. Now, we're not going to come here to our UI. So if this thing is recording, right, we want to put a stop button here instead of a microphone button here. So we're going to come to where we have our microphone button and say that, okay, if we are recording, that means if it's recording, put icons dots. Okay, let's see Cupertino icons, either of them, Cupertino icons dot stop, right? Else, make use of mic, right? Which is good. Now, that's number one. So let us now start recording. Remember that this thing there is the part where the voice recording will be saved on our phone, right? How do we save this thing on our phone? How do we play it? So now what we're going to do is that, okay, before we go ahead to save it, there's a package also called path provider. That path provider gives you access to where data is stored on your phone. So for example, if you download anything from Chrome or from back to pub.dev and then also search for path provider, right? And then we're going to go into path provider and then just copy it. Also, this one does not have any extra configuration. So we're just going to go back to our pub spec and then put our path provider here also. And then press Command S. Now it is done downloading it. So we're now going to import path provider, right? At the top, like we did the other time. Now we're going to say that, okay, we're going to say that where's that? Okay, record audio. Good. So we need to get access to our directory, right? So I'm going to say that directory applications directory, right? Equal to await get applications documents directory. It means the place where documents is being stored on your phone, I need to get the path. I need to make use of it, right? We're not going to say that, okay, string path, that's where we want to store our voice notes equal to a new string, right? And then we're not going to say that, okay, it is going to be, so if I want to pick something from here and attach it into the string, there's something we call concatenation, right? It involves you putting the $ first and then a bracket. And then we're not going to paste this applications document directly dot path. So I want to get a path where something is being saved on my phone, right? And then I want to now give the name. I want to give my audio a name. So I'm just going to say that, okay, audio, let me say 1, right? Then I'm going to say dot M4A because M4A is a valid audio recording format, or we can use dot MP3, anyone. Now, after I now get this path, right, I'm now going to pick the path and I just remove this one and then press paste. And then the moment I do this, we can then, because we added package, we have to stop this our app and then rerun it. So we're stopping this one and then we're just going to press F5 again and then rerun and everything should be fine. So before our app comes up, do we have any other questions? Do we have any questions so far? Is there anything that is confusing that we need to quickly touch on? Anything? Do you have any questions?
Yeah, so I have a question. I don't know if anybody else also has. So about this path provider, like, is it something we have to call every time we need to have access to like a directory, a folder, like a file or anything like that?
Yeah, so if you want to get access to where something is being stored in your documents directly, and you want to, let's say you create for example, after we have recorded our voice notes now, right? We now want to save it inside our documents folder. We have to make use of it, right? But if we just want to get something from our phone, we don't need it at all. We don't need it. If we want to get something from our phone, no, we don't. But if we want to save something there. The reason why we are getting is because we want to save this audio recording into our documents directly. That's why we're getting it.
Okay. I think there's a question on the chat. The person says, Cynthia says, is there a way to let path provider access files on your system through the emulator?
Oh, yes, of course, there is a way, but that is going to deal with you using another package. For example, if I want to pick an image from my emulator, my simulator now, right? There's a package called image picker, right? So you can use this image picker to pick images from your phone, right? If you want to pick videos, you will see video picker. Just check for video picker or check for file picker. Or okay, let's say you want to check for file picker. Okay, now good. You see image picker. You see this one now. It says Flutter plugin for selecting images or videos from the Android and iOS image gallery. So anything that you want to pick from your phone, there's always something that helps you. For example, I can search for file picker, right? And then let me see how you can see there's file picker, a package that allows you to use a native file explorer to pick single or multiple absolute file paths with extension filtering support. And that does it for you. Do you understand? So, okay, if you don't mind going over from the part where you added the package. Oh yeah, we've not gone so far. So we just added the package, right? We added the path provider package, we added the record package, right? And then the audio players package. So record helps us record our voice. Audio players helps us play our recording. Now, path provider helps us get the path where downloads are saved on our phone so that we'll be able to, you know, put our own voice note there and then we can pick it and then play it. That is just what we did. So now, after we have passed our path to this start recording, now remember that this is record.start, right? We need to then do something. What are we going to do next after we have started, you know, recording our audio, right? We are now going to say that, okay, after recording this audio, how can we stop this audio? How can we stop recording? So we're going to create another function. We're going to call it stop record, right? And then we're going to say that, okay, if is recording, that means we want to be sure that we're recording before we stop anything so that our app not crash. We're going to say that if it's recording, no, we're now going to say final path. Remember the path that will pass here. We're going to then get it back. We're going to say final path equals to await recorder. So this is our record now. This is our recorder. We're going to move it outside here so that we're going to have access to it in different functions. We're then going to say that record dot await record dot stop. Sorry. Record dot stop, right? And then we're going to also make this async because we want to also create a string called audio path. That means where our voice note is saved, right? And then we're now going to say that, okay, set state. We want to set the value of our audio path to be that. So we're going to say that, okay, where is it? We're going to say, okay, help us to set our state, right? And then we're going to say that audio path now equal to this path that we just got now, right? Now it says the value of type string with question mark can be assigned to the value of type string. The reason is because this thing can be null if we did not configure properly. So we're going to say that, okay, if path is not equal to null, right? Is not equal to null. Now help us to set the value and then we're good. Button to start recording and then stop recording. So we're now going to come back to our container here, right? We're going to wrap this container in a widget called Inkwell. Inkwell allows allows the child to take in tap events. So we're going to say on tap. So it means that when you tap this container, what do we want to happen? What do you want to happen? So we're going to say, okay, if is recording, that means we are recording, right? Stop recording. Else, if we are not recording, right? Start. Wait, what's the name of that function again? Record audio. Great. So we're going to say record audio, right? And then we're just going to put the brackets, and then this is going to be good. So if we restart our app now like this, I'm coming. If we press on record, what can you guys see what happened now? Remember what we put in our info.p list, right? What did we say? Please give access to your microphone so you can record voice notes. Can you guys see what happened just now? So you can decide to either decline or allow, but because we want to hear our voice now, we're going to just allow. And the moment we allow, it starts to record our audio. So now, if we then click on, now you can see now that it changed the button to that stop button. So let's just change this one to icons.stop instead. So it is because it's recording. So it tells us to stop. Now we're also going to change the text here that, okay, if it's recording, just put stop, else record. So now the app is telling us to stop because we're already recording. Now, if you click on stop, it's going to stop recording for us. Now, this recording that we're recording, how are we going to listen to it? So the next thing we're going to now do is that, okay, this play button also, we're going to now use it to play our button. That's where the audio players package now coming. So now let's wrap this one also in an inkwell widget. And then let's say inkwell, right? And then on top, we're going to pass a function here. Now we're going to create a function called play audio, right? Now, before we create play audio, we need to do something. First of all, we're going to go up. The way we declared our recorder here, we're going to also declare our player. We're going to say final player equal to audio player, and then we're going to import it. Now, after importing, we're going to then create a function called play audio. 1 second. We're going to say play audio, right? Now we're going to say that, okay, how do we play our audio? We're going to then say player.play.play, right? Now it says source. Which source are we getting it from? From our device, right? So now we're going to say device file source, and then we're now going to pass in, you see, remember this is our path that we set here. This is our audio path that we set the value here after we stop recording. Where is it? See, after we stop recording, we're now going to pass it there. And then we're going to set the volume to be the highest volume. We're going to set volume to be 1, right? Now, we're also going to create another variable called is playing so that we'll be able to track on our UI if it's playing or not. So we're going to say is playing is false, right? We're now going to set is playing to true here, right? We're going to say is playing equal to true. Now, remember, so that our UI is in sync with our changes, we're also going to call set state so that it redraws our UI. For example, now, if I don't call set state, our UI will not be rebuilt. So we have to call set state so that our UI will reboot and then it will change from, this play button to pause button. So we're now going to go down here and say that, okay, if it is playing, right? If we are playing, we are going to say pause, else we are going to say play, right? Also for the icon too, if we are playing, we want to do icons.pause, else use icons.play. So now, if we are playing our audio now, how can we stop our audio? So we need to stop our audio. So we're now going to say, okay, we're going to go back also. We're going to say stop audio, right? And then we're going to say player.stop. Let me remove this star. And then we're now going to also set state back and then set is playing to be equal to false. Now, let us now restart our app. This is the auto restart button, and then let's try to record. So you guys are going to be listening to my voice first before I listen to your own. So now let us click on record. And hello, everybody. This is a workshop with Shikoda Africa. My name is Ayodeji, and I'm teaching Flutter here. So let us stop. Now let us play. Okay, something is happening. So our button here, remember that our button here, we've not passed anything here. So now we now want to also check that, okay, inside this our play button, if is playing, right, stop audio, else play audio. So now I want to play audio now. So now let me just click on play. And hello, everybody. This is a workshop with Shikoda Africa. My name is Ayodeji, and I'm teaching Flutter here. So let us stop. So, and we have successfully recorded our voice, my voice actually, and then we have just played it. So what if we want this thing to return back to play when it is done playing my voice, right? There's something called a stream in this, what's it called? In that audio recorder, right? Now, this is a stateful widget. There's something called a widget lifecycle from the start of the widget where you created the widget to where you will dispose it. Now, there's a function, there's a method in a widget called init state. Init state means that, okay, when this widget is first created, what do you want me to do? For example, you as a baby, the first day that you were born, the first thing that you did was to cry, right? Or for example, the first day that you joined She Code Africa, the first thing you probably did was to receive a round of applause for taking a bold step, right? So the first time that you create this widget, what do you want to do? So now I want to add a listener to my player such that when my player is done playing, I'm just going to return this thing back to play, right? So I'm going to then say at override, I want to override this init state, right? And then I want to say that, okay, init states. Oh yeah, so I'm going to come here and say super.init state, right? Now I want to say that, okay, player dot event stream dot listen, right? And then I want to say that, okay, if event dot event type, right, is equal to audio event type dot complete. That means our audio is done playing, right? I want to set state and say that is playing is equal to false. Now, if we go back and restart our app, let's record another voice note again. Let's say record. Okay, this is me recording another voice note, testing what we have just done. I know this works well. Then we're gonna stop. Now we're gonna play. Okay, this is me recording another voice note, testing what we have just done. I know this works well. Then, so can you guys see now that it returned back to play the moment it was done playing our audio? So now the last thing we want to do now is that as we are recording as we are playing our audio, we want to see, you know, the minutes of what we are doing as we are recording our audio. We want to see the number of, you know, the minutes that we are using or seconds that we have used to record our audio. So what are we going to do? Now, there's something called a timer in that, right? Timer helps you time something. So for example, if you want something to happen every 1 second, you can use a timer. If you want something to happen every 2 seconds, you can 2 seconds, sorry, you can use a timer. So we're going to say timer, right? Timer. Now we're not going to come inside our record audio function, right? And say that, okay, as you are recording audio every 1 second, we want you to update this UI and then help us to put our record time there. So we're not going to come back here and say timer equal to timer dot periodic. It means that at this particular period, I want this thing to happen. So what do we want to do? We want this thing to update every 1 second. We want you to help us update our duration every 1 second. So we're going to pass in a duration object, right? And then say duration. We're now going to say seconds. We're going to pass 1 second, right? And then we're going to pass this callback. So every 1 second, I want something to happen. So what do I want to happen every 1 second? I want to say that, okay, now final duration, that is the duration that I have used so far, equal to timer dot tick, right? Now, and I want to say that, okay, I want to format my dates to also look like this. So I will say that, okay, final formatted time equal to now duration, another duration object, right? Now, this is the duration so far that we have used for recording voice notes. How do we display it? So I'm now going to pass the seconds, right? And say that, okay, this is the number of seconds that we have used so far, right? And then put a semicolon here. How do we display it? Now, the first thing we can do is to convert this to a string. If I do to string now, and then I print it, let me just print formatted time. Now, let's try to record the voice notes. Just hold on. And then let's restart. Now, if I record, now, can we see it now? Can we see that something is printing here? 1, 2, 3. So we've used 7 seconds so far. And then when I stop, though it does not stop, but we need to be able to cancel it. So we're not going to go into our stop and say that, okay, when we stop, I want you to stop this timer. So we're now going to say that timer dot cancel. So just cancel this timer once I stop recording. So if I restart now, let me restart, and then say that, okay, we're recording 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4, 5, and then when I stop, it stops recording, which is good. Now, this thing that is here, how do we put it on our UI here? So now we're not going to format this time. Remember that it is already formatted 0 hours, 0 minutes, 3 seconds, 0 hours, 0 minutes, 4 minutes. So how do we put it on the UI? Remember that there's something that separates these hours, minutes, and seconds from the milliseconds, which is the full stop, right? So we're now going to do formatted time now dot split. So we want to split it by that full stop. And then we want to take, so if you split something now, it takes this part, put it in one half, takes this part and then puts it in another half. We don't need this half, right? The one that we need is here. So we're now going to do dot split, then do dot first, which is the first one. We're now going to say that, okay, I want to set state and then set my voice recording duration, the one that is on this UI, right? Set my voice recording duration now to be equal to formatted time. And then I'm going to hit this. And then the moment I do that, I'm just going to restart and click on record. And yes, here we are with the duration of our voice record. So, and then we can just go ahead to, stop. And then you also see that we have recorded 11 seconds voice note so far. And then we'll click on play record. And yes, here we are with the duration of our voice record. So, and then we can just go ahead to, stop. Yeah. So I think this brings us to the end of our workshop. I'm a minute later than I thought that I would. I'm so sorry for taking your time, but I needed to explain this as much as I could. And I hope you guys enjoyed this session. So I think this is time for questions. If you have any questions, please throw them my way.
Wow. Thank you so much. That was really, really exhaustive. I've learned a lot. I've been jotting down a lot of things. Let me start with my question. If you have questions, you can just raise your hand so that we know these people that have questions, because we're already wrapping up. So I want to ask about Inkwell. I noticed you made use of it. Is it like what you use to handle any kind of click actions? By click actions, I mean like you want to click on login and then you want to move to like another screen. Do you also call the Inkwell? Okay. All right. All right.
Yeah. So
right.
now
Does anyone?
we have
Okay.
different, I want to explain this. We have some different widgets that can take in inputs, right? So one is Inkwell, the other is gesture detector. For example, what Inkwell only does is that Inkwell only, for example, okay, let's go into Inkwell, right? Let's go here and then let's see. If you take a look at the properties, right? It says on tap, it means you can tap on it. You will see on long press, it means you can long press on it. You will see on double tap, it means you can double tap on it. You will see on tap down, on tap cancel, different things that you can do, right? There's now also another widget called gesture detector, right? It's more robust because now for Inkwell now, gesture detector, if you drag your hand on the screen, gesture detector will know exactly where your hand is on the screen and then give you the particular offset. So let's assume that you want to drag a widget to any part of the screen, for example, right? You can use a gesture detector, right? But we don't have so much time. I would have shown us how to do that. We'll have a widget here and then we'll just be dragging it across our screen and, just playing around with it. But that will probably be for another session. So you can use gesture detector or Inkwell. But one good thing about Inkwell is that if you press on Inkwell, it shows you like a splash of what you are clicking on. Can you see? And then you can also customize this splash color actually, depending on your use case. Right. So I hope I've been able to do justice to that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Does anyone have any question? I can't see anybody raising their hands. Please, if you have question, okay. Can you unmute your mic so that you speak, please? I don't know your name. It's 230 80 60 13. Do you want to speak? Okay, let's see. All right, before that person speaks, I also wanted to ask, I think someone raised this question on the chat about auto suggestion plugin. I'm not sure you shared that. on the
Okay, yes, I
chats?
did. So I make use of GitHub Copilot, right? GitHub
Okay,
Copilot,
okay.
though it has a free version, but of course, there's a limit to what you can do, right? Aside from
Yeah,
GitHub,
yeah.
you can also make use of Tab9 autocomplete. However, even if you are not able to make use of either of these things, there are a bunch of tools out there. For example, you could head to ChatGPT, for example, and say, let me just head to chat.open.ai and then say, how can I record a voice note in Flutter, right? And this is where speed comes in. And then it just gives you what you need to do. You can see, it tells you you can use the Flutter sound or the record package. The record package is what we just made use of now. And then it just gives you practically everything that we did, right?
Awesome.
So, and then you can make use of it.
Voila.
So,
This AI discussion will be for another day. I want to ask questions, but let's leave that one. We'll also come back. We also plan to host like how to collaborate, like how developers can leverage on like AI. There are several types. For me, I just even tried a different AI like this week, and it's actually helped me with my Flutter learning. So I want to say thank you so much for your time. This was really, really extensive and well detailed. I'm sure that everyone has learned a thing or two. Me, I've actually been jotting down a lot of things that I will go back and research on myself. And also, please, for everyone that joined this call, don't forget to fill the feedback form. I already dropped the link earlier. And if you're interested in joining She Code Africa community, please feel free to click the link to join the community as well. We are a community of tech women. We organize trainings like this and workshops. We also hold our hands up in this whole tech industry. So for instance, in the mobile channel, which I lead with my co-lead Zainab, what we do on our channel, like if you have questions and during your developments, like React or Android, you can drop your questions on the channel and someone is always there to like assist. So thank you so much to everyone that joins. This is me signing out. So see you for our next upcoming workshop. And if you want to reach out to our speaker, please just chat him up, send a message. His LinkedIn is there. And this slide will be shared, including the recording to your mail. So don't worry, you have access to everything, including the source code to play around with. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
thank you for your time, everybody. Take care. Bye.